And thank you very much for staying with us here on your election headquarters. It's been a packed day, a lot of activity across the country for the New Patriotic Party. The NPP has decided. They decided and picked several names to go to Parliament after the December 7 elections. And everyone who's contested today and won will have to now face off in the main battle on December 7. But tonight, as you may already have heard here on your election headquarters, there have been some major casualties. We've seen that Tina Mensah has lost her seat in Wager, and I'm here, of course, in the studio with Winston Amwa and Raymond Akwa, and we have a special guest joining us, and he himself in his Bekwai constituency has been pretty active today. We are very delighted to be joined in the studio by the first Deputy Speaker of Parliament. Osei-Owusu is one of so many incumbents who decided simply, we're not going to go to Parliament again. This is going to be our final term, and he has retired, but still remains politically active. He's in the studio with us. He has the knowledge when it comes to the NPP, and so he's going to help us make sense of what has happened today, especially with his friends in Parliament who today have lost the primaries. Thank you very much for joining us, Osei-Owusu.
Forgive me. Over a week now, I'm now recovering, so lost part of my voice.
And definitely today's pressure won't help.
Well, not really much of a pressure. I was pretty confident until just at the time I was boarding the flight when I saw the results.
Oh.
Unfortunately, the candidate I supported lost.
We're whisking you away, and then the bad news kicked in. And he's talking about Bekwai, that Bekwai constituency. And the Bekwai constituency is a very interesting constituency because of you. You decided not to step in again. And so everybody was interested to see who is going to replace the Colossus, Osei-Owusu. And it turns out that it's going to be Ralph Poku-Edusei.
Yes.
Who has this evening managed to beat George Alex Mensah COP. And the difference was significant. 662 votes to Ralph Poku-Edusei to 245 to COP Alex Mensah. Give me your reaction to that.
Well, congratulations to Ralph. Congratulations to the constituents. They made a choice, and as Democrats, we respect their choice. I'm particularly satisfied that I did my best for COP George Alex Mensah. I would have regretted if I took no part at all in supporting him, because he actively supported me throughout my political career. So he deserved all my support. However be it, this is a competition. We've lost. It's that simple. The next level is the candidate we are presenting for the national elections, the candidate of the party. And every one of us will put his hand to the wheel to support him to win.
And of course, you were, as I said, disappointed when you saw the results. What was it about Alex Mensah that you felt deserved your support?
Well, I have known Alex Mensah from childhood. He was not a privileged child. He has had to struggle to get up every inch of the way. He's attended some of the schools we call low-grade schools, but he still excelled at every level. And then we met at the university. One interesting thing, I was the hall president when he came to the University of Commonwealth Hall, and rooms were not readily available. So I had made some reservation for sports people. I was scouting for active sportsmen. Then he approached me, Joe, I do athletics. I said, you? I've known you from Bekwai. I've never seen you run anywhere. I said, oh, I do. After some time, he convinced me. Then came the sports period, and he actually won the cross country. So, whoa. So he's one person who put his mind to it, he does it. And then I saw him as a policeman, rising through the ranks, and anybody who will look at his record, at every position he has held at the police service, he's a very effective policeman. So I look at his competence, I look at his character as I know him, I look at his resilience. When it comes to book, he has 2 masters, he's a chartered accountant, he's a lawyer. Very few people can combine these professions. So I was persuaded that he was sufficiently competent and experienced to set in, and the choir would benefit more from him.
But this
is all history. Now the election is over.
Okay.
And the delegates opted for somebody else. Finished.
Did it not worry you, what happened before the committee, the IGP's committee? This is a man who purportedly sat in the committee of people hoping to get the IGP replaced because he was not playing a partisan role in an election of that sort.
Frankly,
yes.
Let's go back and listen to the thing. What was it that the committee was to investigate? Somebody holds a private conversation with a friend who has invited him, and he criticizes his boss, and that becomes a matter for public investigation.
Well, I mean,
that's our politics.
Yeah.
You know. I thought that rather what should have concerned us is how did a private conversation end up in the public domain and eventually in Parliament? If it were in court, that conversation would not be admissible. So what was it that Parliament was investigating?
well, as it turns out, the delegates have spoken.
Yeah.
And you say you put your weight behind the winner. You're going to support him in your constituency because he needs that to win on December 7th.
Why not? Any role I have to play.
Oh, he would win in Bekwai. Clearly.
It's guaranteed.
Yes.
Well, it's not always a done deal.
Well,
no.
The man seated by you, one is an independent candidate.
Yes. No, but I get the point.
Okay, so let's ask that question then. Is he going to stay in support? Or will he...
I said, the party's candidate is my candidate.
No, I'm just asking whether Alex Mensah, he's lost. Will he, because he mentioned
Would you
he went
follow your
independent, would he follow your example
Yes.
and go independent, or he's going to stay and
I
support?
do not think so. I do not think so at all. You see, the circumstances under which I went independent are different. I lost by a very slim margin. I'd complained that the election, the voting itself had been manipulated. People who were not eligible to vote had been brought in to vote. The party took no action. Then my constituents were agitated. That is not the case here. The winner has won convincingly. There's no complaints. I've spoken to him just before I came here. He has no complaints. He has accepted the results as it is. So if it's going to be independent, it will certainly not be George Alex Mensah.
Okay, great. I mean, so that closes the chapter on Bekwai. Let's start with what we all were looking forward to in this particular constituency here. And the results we know now is what you have on your screens there. Aaron Michael Quay, the son of the former Speaker of Parliament, won the Dom Kwabenya primary, beating Sarah Jasafo heavily there. This is one of the constituencies, the constituency that everybody was looking forward to because of Sarah Jasafo's own controversial activities in the last 2 years, abandoning the party in Parliament and giving George Osei-Owusu and others a tough time trying to get government business done and all that. Today, the delegates have delivered a resounding verdict. Walk us through the numbers.
Well, so Sarah Jasafo polled 328 votes, and you have Michael Aaron Ekwe Jr., 1,194. That is 69.9% of the votes, compared to Sarah Jasafo's 19.20. And then you have, Sheila Adoma Sechiopong polling 186 votes. That was expected because she was not actually part of the race. Initially, many people thought that, yes, Michael Quay would win, right? Because of the happenings of the last week, you expected a better performance from Adrasafo, particularly when delegates were moving in and out of her house and talking about having forgiven her. But if there's anything to learn from, Wejagbawe, it tells you that delegates sometimes could be tricky.
And as we see there, the last time they came face to face in 2020, he lost with just 8 votes.
8 votes, yes.
This year, he's left no doubt who is boss in that constituency. And I want to come to you for reactions to this. What's your reaction to the outcome in Dom Kwabenya?
Well, a democracy at play. The two of them had competed 3 times at riot.
This is the third one.
This is the third time.
Right.
The third time. Adjoa has won twice previously, and Michael Quay has now won for the first time. What it means is that the dynamics have changed. What influenced the voters' thinking in each of the elections was different. And I'm sure that Ajwa will accept the results as a Democrat as she is, and we expect that there will be cooperation so that the constituency can win the election for NPP.
Considering what happened with Ajwa Safo, and the only reason, one of the key reasons why everybody was focusing here was we're looking to see if the delegates will reward her for everything that she did to the party, the struggle that you went through. In fact, part of the reason why there also had to be a verdict in Parliament, whether you can sit and still vote, was because Ajwa Safo wasn't there. So even you, I don't know whether to use the word victim, but you were put in the center of everything. Do you think that influences outcome? You know your party, you know your delegates and the way they think.
Well, it's difficult to say at any point in time the way delegates think, because they're individuals from different homes, influenced by different cultures. But generally, what we do, how we behave, how we act when we take positions, influence the way people think sometimes. But excuse me, I think that probably the absence of Ajwa over a long period may have led her followers down. And from what I hear, when the primaries were being conducted, she was not in town. So, knowing how we do this game, I'm sure the person who was available took advantage to make sure that his supporters were the ones who were made the followers. As for those things, the real election happens during that period. If you prepare well, then you are sure. If you manage that process and you get a number of people who support you into the album, become the delegates, then you're halfway through. And if you're able to maintain the relationship with them after the end, then you're halfway through to that election. But beyond that, I think quite a number of party supporters were in a way offended by Ajwa's absence during that period. And I think that also may have influenced the way people think.
In Parliament, she's your colleague. Among Parliament and within the party, was there the expectation that this was going to be the outcome? Did you all expect that?
Frankly, I never had any discussions. And until I got the results here, that's not one of the things that... but I knew it was possible. I knew it was possible particularly because I read somewhere that Michael Kwe had been very active in populating the delegates. And that gives a lot of advantage.
And to the big picture, what signal does this send to party leaders within your ranks who at a point may decide to act in the way that in essence is seen as taking the party for granted, taking a party that had necessarily created you and given. We've seen that in both NDC and NPP, but this, of course, was very unprecedented in the way it dragged. Delegates have delivered their verdict here. Does it send any signal?
Well, what I would say is that in this game of politics, if you're on it, stay focused. If you leave the vacuum, there's never a vacuum. Somebody or some people quickly fill in the space. So I decided not to contest again. If I had, after 2-3 years, made up my mind, now I'll go again, my situation would be totally different because people would have realigned. Positions would have changed. Even loyalty to you would have changed. So if you want to go, keep your eye on the ball. If you decide not to go, don't change your mind. As I don't know at what point Ajwa decided to recontest, because in a year or so before, everybody thought that she's given up. She's given up. She had no intention of returning to work in the podcast space. So during that period, I believe strongly that alliances would have changed. New friends would have been formed. Even your loyal supporters would have moved loyalty. It's difficult to regroup.
And Raymond, there's something that the Constitution Secretary said that I want to repeat. He says the feeling they got from the wider constituency, you lived there, was that the NPP change Ajwa Safo or forget about the national elections. In other words, the delegates were voting today, but those are about the big picture. Yeah. It's about who do you present and that the delegates were necessarily told to reflect what the general sentiments were, present a fresh face, or just simply forget about December 7th?
Her earlier consultations, right, said, listen, we've heard even from the market women. These are women who have supported you for God knows how long, even though the market's not completed. They are behind you and they have gone out there to campaign for you. Yes, go back to them. If you're able to convince them, we saw those videos, right? They were hooting at her.
Yeah.
Subsequently, they did another one where it appeared that the people were welcoming
And
her.
then she begged them.
Yes,
for forgiveness.
Because the people were sending her a signal that, listen, you have not only offended those within the party and its hierarchy. What the market women kept saying that anytime they heard news about Domeko Abenya is that their MP is sitting somewhere abandoning the constituency, and they felt terrible for it. So you needed to make sure that, in fact, they asked us to replace you, or else we are going to suffer. Or else they're going to punish all of us and make sure that some of these things do not happen again. And it moved on. So some of us felt, in all fairness, I kept saying that a month or even some months ago, you would say she would not dare contest. But in the last few weeks, it appears she has mended fences. That's why some part of the results appear shocking to, I'm sure, her inner core, because they moved heaven and earth to try and get back the love from the people in ways that sometimes will be very funny. But it was happening. She was moving from school to school. She was going around the areas that she had tough opposition, even from the people. She lived herself in a Shoman estate. That's where her house really was. But if you see how long she spent in Dome, which is really where she had her strongest support, you'll be shocked how many people have come to think of it as, oh, well, let's see what she can do. After all these years, for the years she served us, she appeared to be doing a good job. So let's give her a second chance. In fact, you could speak to delegates who are just last night or the night before left her house and were convinced, well, the woman has explained to us on several occasions, but this is almost rebonding time. So let's see how the wider grouping were going to act. But there was still suspicion. There was still suspicion that there is anger in the hearts of many, and that no matter what you did, they were not going to allow her to continue as Member of Parliament. And that's what played out big time in the elections. You will be shocked how drivers will be passing by, she'll be passing by too. Then they will deliberately to be hooting their horns and be saying whatever. The Member of Parliament on the streets, on the main road, and there's a bit of traffic almost on that stretch, so it's problematic.
And these are not necessary delegates. These are just...
Yeah, these are just ordinary people. So the anger was visible.
So it reflected what the constituency secretary was saying.
Yes.
That he had the December 7th and the general...
It was so clear to them that something ought to be done about her. The advice she was giving was, if you're able to turn the hearts and the minds of the people to now love you like they used to before, we can get it. And she deployed people.
Well,
she deployed resources.
But it didn't happen.
She did her very best, but it appears here.
Winston?
Well, I think it was coming. You see, look at Adwoa Safo's political history. In 2007 or 8, when she challenged Michael Quay, very young lawyer at the time, we said she was the youngest person to have been called to the Ghanaian bar. You know, she had a lot of bars around her. She lost.
The Christa Safo factor.
The Christa Safo factor, they introduced her. By 2012, a lot of people don't remember. By the time she beat Michael Quay and, to this particular election, it was Adwoa Safo's complaint about the votes she got. That was actually what drew the NPP's attention to the election petition. Osei-Owusu is here. He can testify to that.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
So it made it very popular.
And a lot was said about that. A lot of written about her resilience and the persistence.
This is a lady who had just shown up. She's just contesting for the first time. And her meticulous nature, how she monitored and policed the elections, led to that discovery that taught the NPP a certain lesson. They said, hold on a minute, let's begin to check. So by 2015, 2016, bingo, nobody was going to challenge her. So you could see that Michael Quay didn't show up. By 2020, Michael Quay felt, okay, my father did 2 terms, you may as well let it go. He shows up, he didn't win. Now, many would have thought that, okay, after a 3rd term, Adwoa will probably begin rethinking her political future. She decides to contest again or not, we didn't know at the time. But the moment she stayed away from the country, it was obvious she was not going to win that. Look, she told different stories anytime she had the chance to explain why she was out of the country. And once you tell different stories, all of us can see that you are not telling us the truth.
And I remember very well, if I'm not mistaken, Mrs. Owusu, you were part of a committee that she was supposed to appear. This was the
Privilege
Committee. In fact, you were the chair of the Privilege Committee.
Yeah, that did the reports, yeah.
And I remember very well, they were looking for her, and they set up a Zoom facility for her to join. She didn't appear there, but she was on Joy News here.
Yes.
Talking to us. And I remember talking to you later. I said, well, you were surprised that you were looking for her, and she was talking to a TV station. You didn't know how we got him because you tried. And I know very well because I spoke to my friends, and you had tried. You sent people, very influential people, to talk to her.
Even to her home there.
Say again?
Even to her home in the US.
Yes, exactly. To try and get her to join, and she didn't join. And your point is all that.
She played into Michael Kwei's hands. Because even Kennedy Ejapong, who had gone to support her in 2020, telling the whole world that Michael Kwei Sr. had actually called him to support his son to beat Adwoa Safo. And that was the reason he decided to support Adwoa Safo. He was on radio stations talking about how Adwoa Safo was holding the party to ransom. So when you are not around, you're supposed to appear before the Privileges Committee. You're on Joy News, speaking to us, telling us that, your child is sick and all of that. The next moment, you had John Boedu, who was, at the time, the General Secretary of the NPP, complaining about Adwoa Safo. Look, all of these things...
And what capped it all was the fact that, let's be fair, the woman kept giving very different reasons why she stayed away.
Like I'm saying...
They are not complementary. Sometimes you are unsure what really was the main reason why she stayed away. Yeah. And all of the years, I've asked those market women before. So which reasons was she giving you people for staying away for so long?
I had a reason of, my son not being well, and if I am gender and women's social protection, it should start from my home.
Yeah.
Then later on, you come and tell us that you went to give birth and you didn't have the child and it affected you. Then you were on TikTok. Then you come back to Ghana. You are doing Kwekwa Nancy dance. Life is a wild carnival. Look, Osei-Owusu is here. In politics, the sense of entitlement even delegates have is the reason Ofusua Samoa, at the time we used to call him 4x4x5, Kedi, when he was in his V8 and the man stopped him to take him to the KVIP, he told himself that moment he won't go back to Parliament.
No contesting again.
So when you do all of that, look, the delegates have a certain sense of entitlement. So they were watching. And mind you, President Akufo-Addo outperformed Adwoa Safo in Dom Kwabenya.
Yeah.
Already I told you that Akufo-Addo had 200,000 more votes than his members of parliament in the 2020 general election, compared to Mahama, whose members of parliament had 30,000 more votes than he did. So if you look at the situation, and the Elikbilim, Akurugu, performed very well in 2020, and the fear was that if you presented Adwoa Safo again, who had lost that, and I live in that constituency. Look, walk through the constituency, and today you see people celebrating, you see people jubilating, because they just didn't want Adwoa Safo back, even on the ticket of the NPP, because that would have affected the NPP. But this is the other thing. I was even surprised that when the NPP had a chance, they passed her to go and contest the election. Because this is a person you wanted out of parliament. Then now you have a chance, then you pass her to go and contest the election. Well, you may actually argue that sometimes it's better for people to be rejected at the polls.
Yeah, and that was
you
one
disqualify.
of the I mean, the plausible deniability question.
Yeah, because once you disqualify her, she can then make a case and say, I was treated unfairly, I want to be an independent candidate. Now that you have
and again, you need her in parliament. Let's not get disturbed. We're still having a 137 situation.
Exactly.
If you don't manage it properly, and she decides to say that, no, I'm giving it all up, I'm going back, I'm never coming back, it might be problematic for you.
See, my point is that Samuel Atachian was here. So you must read the feelings of the people. I think whoever advised Adwoa Safo to contest again has done her a great disservice. If it was her own idea, she's done herself a great disservice because the writings were clear on the wall.
But if the party also wanted her out, they would have played this. They played this very smartly.
Yeah.
You encourage her actually to go, knowing, and we make this point in the morning. You encourage her to contest, and then she legitimately loses because the delegates make a decision. And that makes it impossible. You made the point. Makes it impossible for her to go independent because this doesn't stop her from going independent anyway.
She can.
It doesn't.
She wants to.
Of course,
some have raised that matter in the constituency. Some are already hinting that why not? I mean, if you felt, and let's also get this part clarified. In the last election, she felt very big NPP people were trying to get her out of the seat.
And part of the reason why she was very unhappy with the party.
She was not excited about that particular engagement. Even though she won, she carried that with her. Whenever she had articulated the problems she had as a member of parliament and subsequently as a minister, she actually added one of that to her problems. That it appeared that there's a cabal that was interested in getting her out. So if you stretch that, if you made it very obvious that as a party we wanted to remove her from power, then she felt there was nothing to lose at the end of the day. And we cannot dismiss it. Yes, she's lost parliamentary primaries. But that family is prominent in Dominic Abinya.
Very prominent.
From Taifa straight down to Ashoman, they are very prominent. People still connect to when the father used to, on those exhibition days, share food to virtually everybody who could come there.
Yeah,
and those connections are real even today.
Yes, but you see...
In my constituency.
Okay, oh, so that's that.
It still does that in my constituency.
Oh, okay. In Bekwai.
Yeah, that's what I come.
But you see, Evans, let me give you an example. So in 2008, Osei-Owusu came as an independent candidate. Ofori Kuregu came as an independent candidate from Bosome Fremu. Now, all of them went to the primaries at the same time. Osei-Owusu, he won. Ofori Kuregu lost. He went back as an independent candidate. What happened to him? He lost that election. Sometimes the people may like you. And so would bring you back as would vote for you as an independent candidate. But never mistake the likeness the people have for you and take them for granted. When you do not perform, the people can see. And when it matters the most, they would vote against you. Well, I mean, it's always a choice. Based on what she has done in the past, I wouldn't be surprised if she wants to go as an independent candidate.
But she can't claim that she was unfairly treated.
But she was not unfair.
No, yeah, exactly.
Mostly,
But that's my
people
point.
feel the unfair treatment and they support
There's
you.
nothing. In fact, if there's anything, the party has bent over backwards to
accommodate her.
And there are many who criticize the party for doing so, including the fact that they cleared her, including the fact that they, just before the primaries, she's been confirmed as the vice chair on the Constitutional, Legal and Parliamentary Affairs Committee. Exactly. So many looked at that and said, well, why are you rewarding her?
And again, there's deputy speaker here. The speaker promised a certain declaration or ruling on this particular matter. I don't know if it has happened in our absence, or some of us have not followed.
It hasn't happened.
I've not heard anything like that.
It hasn't. I think some members of parliament took the matter to court for rather the court to intervene because the matter moved from Ajwa to whether it is the entire house that has to accept the explanation of a member who has been absent for 15 sittings or more, or it is the committee. If you read the Constitution says unless you offer an explanation which the committee accepts. Now, some members are arguing, including Mr. Speaker, that the committee is a committee of the House, so it is not sufficient for the committee to say we accept or we reject the explanation, but rather that decision must be approved by the House. That became the controversy. There had been previous rulings touching on that matter, so some members, I'm aware, filed a petition at the Supreme Court calling for interpretation. That's why the matter stalled up to date. So the Speaker's ruling then had to stall. But I think it was appropriate because I don't think that we should leave the interpretation to Mr. Speaker, particularly when members are not addendum on what. And this is a constitutional interpretation, not the rules. If the rules, Mr. Speaker's ruling will be final. But when it comes to the Constitution, then I think the appropriate place was the Supreme Court. And I think because it is happening in the last Parliament, too many members had stayed out longer than what the Constitution permits them to stay out for without the Speaker's permission. There's a danger that if we do not look at that, we have challenges with managing the House. The Speaker had introduced a system where now, I think it was every end of term they advertise how many people were absent. And you see the record clearly. This number of people had breached the constitutional requirement, and yet we take no action. So I think it is appropriate that the Supreme Court does the interpretation so that we put a finality to how to deal with the situation like that. Otherwise, when it comes to matters of independence, my experience is that when you want to contest independence in a stronghold of a party, you must be from the party that has the majority votes. And it is actually the members of the party, if they are sufficiently agitated, they will vote for you.
Just like your current second deputy speaker.
Exactly. When members of the community align with the person contesting the independent that he or she has been treated unfairly, then there's a likelihood that they will rally behind that person. And otherwise, it's difficult to win an independence in a stronghold of a party. Usually, the people vote for the party, not individuals.
Yeah.
A few times that people in the constituency have taken issue with the party in the way they have treated a particular candidate. Then they shift their loyalty from the party to that particular candidate. But it's short-lived. That's the example you're giving.
Yeah.
So for In the first instance, I was contesting independent then, and I was moving around his constituency, and the chief said, "Oh, lawyer, you stop. The former MP told us that here we can never get light, we have to remove. But we have seen him, he's brought polls. We have seen, now you say we should change him. We will vote for him." It was all over. They thought that he has taken major steps to support their community. And then you go and remove him. So they rather aligned with him. When he tried again, because then they have had 4 years to have continued where you left off, nothing new happened. So then their loyalty shifted back to their party. So it is difficult to win in a stronghold of a party. One, if you're not a party person, and two, the community does not align with you, thinking that you're being unfairly treated. These are the things.
And that point Osei-Owusu makes there leads me to the point about how this whole process towards this outcome has been managed by the party. Because if we look at Osei-Owusu, it has to be palpably obvious that you had been, shortchanged in the process. People believe that you have been, and therefore when you go and they like you from the party, they vote for you. He was a beneficiary that his current second deputy speaker is a beneficiary of that. Doesn't then put that in the context, it put the Adwoa Safo's confirmation as a vice chair of the Constitutional and Legal Affairs Committee into context, that whoever possibly thought about this particular outcome and maybe was engineering it, thought, well, let's create a scenario where when she loses, and this is politics, so everything is possible, and the NPP has a good record of being very astute in delivering outcomes when it had been clearly planned from the start. You put her there, if she has any complaints, but you have then point to the fact that, but we just put you there as a vice chair of a very important committee. If we really wanted you out that bar, why would you reward you that way? In essence, they wanted to remove the question about her being treated unfairly in a contest and leave it to the delegates to do it. And even if she raises it, it becomes highly unlikely that anybody will believe her. This is the same party that you cause a lot of pain to. They struggle to pass their bills, and government policy through the House, but then rewards you with a very important position in the House. Why would they have an interest in getting you out? That, for me, appears to be if anybody calculated this, did this brilliantly. The doubt has been removed that this is a fair outcome, and it's difficult for her then to go, even if she goes independent. Listen to what Osei-Owusu had said. People in that constituency will
not be on the side.
Yeah, yeah. Don't buy the argument that she's been treated unfairly.
And there's evidence. And there's another one I can share with you in Nkoko. Shaba, tried it again. He lost because the first time, and I started by saying it, when the people agree that you've been unfairly treated and you come as an independent candidate, they will vote for you. But when you come and you underperform, now you're giving a fair playing field. So Osei-Owusu had to go into a contest with Edwin Sepoku. Again, yes, in 2012, September, then, they do it nicely. September, then they cross and say, I'm going to the NPP, and then you can't organize a by-election. So they let it go. And he won. Osei-Owusu goes, he loses. Shaba goes, he loses. And they try to go back as independent candidates. They lost.
Doesn't happen.
And so, in this case, Adjo Asafo cannot claim to have been unfairly treated.
Absolutely not.
Because you are a leader when the parliament said that they want to say the extended leadership of parliament. So they bring the committee chairpersons and vice chairpersons. You're part of it.
Yeah.
So you're being treated fairly. You went through the whole election. You had a chance to meet delegates. I mean, people can always find reasons to say I was unfairly dealt. But who told you the world is fair? The world has never been fair.
Well, that's politics for you. and you understand why we spend a bit of time on Dong Kwabenya, because of all the permutations there and its impact. It is still the largest constituency in this country. So the NPP wants it. They want to win it because, as we know, in second terms, outcomes of the polls tend to be very, very, very slim. 2000, there was a runoff. 2008, there was a runoff. And it's no coincidence that in those years when the parties are having their second terms, it's very close. So you need every vote. And that is why we heard the party secretary in the constituency say the people, they did a poll and the people told them that if you bring Sarah Adjo Asafo, forget about December 7th. And the outcome is what we see there. So that's Dong Kwabenya. Let's go to Tano North, where Gideon Wako managed to kill a giant in Frida Pempe, right? And the results aren't even close, right?
No,
it's Gideon had 444 votes as against Frida Pempe's 221 votes. And Gideon Wako, as we know, is the economic advisor to the vice president's office. He actually also speaks for him.
Yeah.
And he was on my show on PM Express, I believe, on Tuesday, and asked him the question about whether the vice president had either overtly or covertly been backing him. He says categorically no, but of course, he had gone to him to ask his blessing to go, and he's gone, and he's won quite resoundingly. I see a right smile on your face. I don't know what that means. I'll come and ask. But he came up against the sanitation minister, who is loved by the president, Frida Pempe. Took over that. She was a minister of state that works in housing.
Yeah.
Before she got this position, so she's a formidable character there. And many thought going into this that she was actually going to win this. But as we've seen, it's been a significant defeat with a margin that is not close at all. Osei-Owusu, Frida Pempe is your colleague in the House. Did it surprise you?
Should I say it surprised me? In elections, particularly when you're going for a third term, a fourth term, what I learned also, I started as a polling station chairman, rose to what we now call electoral area coordinator, became a constituency chairman. I learned over the years that somehow the people get fed up with you after second term, third term. Indeed, one of the old ladies in one of my the towns in my constituency, Kokofu, said, "Oh, lawyer, I'll come here and say, I don't go and crash it." When I was doing my fourth term, people was pointing to all the good things that is happening. Say, "Yeah, you're not going to beat me. You're the only person who can do all the good things." So, come up with Rebbe. Not because you're doing anything wrongly, not because you're not performing, but the thing that you have had 3 terms is enough. So, third term, fourth term onwards, you need to be strong on the ground. Frida, I thought, was very firm. But the other thing we don't talk about often about Gideon is that he's been an active player on the ground for a long time. He was a regional youth organizer, and then he was a student leader. So he has the ability to link with the young people on the ground. And from my experience, loyalty, women, they are fiercely loyal. Elderly people. As for young men,
They can't shift.
so anytime you have challenges with the elderly, both men and women, and the women, you're in trouble. Because any strong competition, as for the young people, young boys, young men, they're likely to abandon you. But if you're able to keep a strong faith with elderly people and women generally, it gives you a lot of advantage in any election. I knew this election was going to be tough. I'm reading about what Frida was putting on our platforms and things, but Gideon was not talking. And anytime people are quiet, it means that they are strong on something. And so I had my jitters a little that something could happen. And then our people love people in power. So coming from the office of the president is a huge boost.
And the candidate of the party.
Yes. It was a huge boost to his candidacy. So I won't say it's surprising. I hadn't expected the margin to be this big, but I'm not surprised at that result.
Raymond, how about you? Were you surprised?
Not necessarily. I didn't expect the margin to be this big, quite frankly.
Okay.
Because let's break the areas down. Frida is from Dua Nkwanta, the capital. The expectation was that she had control. But we all know that there were difficulties with even some chiefs. And when you mentioned elderly people, that issue also came up. In the last couple of weeks or months, she tried patching some of these difficulties when she realized that the threat was real. Now, Gideon Boako is from Boma. Boma is not as big as Yanfo, but Yanfo is very close to Boma. So the people of Yanfo and Boma tend to have the same kind of people, align on some of these issues. And so he had made a lot of inroads in both Yanfo and Boma. The other big town is Tanoso. Now, in Tanoso, the MP Frida replaced Akubo Deborah is from Tanoso.
Yeah.
There were sentiments on the ground that we will punish her for using what she now is opposing. Frida's campaign was what you said. Why? Are you the only person in this town? You've been 2-3 times. She can't allow you to go for the next one. So you get a point. Then she, who had said previously that, well, I'm not going to exceed the period, that if I am elected, I'll not exceed what I'm saying he's actually been exceeding. So I'll not go for third or fourth time. Then she ends up fighting for it. So the two biggest towns, apart from the capital, were quite aligned in opposition. For the people of Tanoso, what you did to our man is the same thing you deserve to actually suffer.
Payback time.
Yes, and the two other places we could have supported her was also aligned in support of Gideon Boako in this case. It was going to be difficult. I was expecting in the last few days the things she had done to prop her up in terms of votes. It seemed that the deep-seated differences were that deep to deny her this massive number of votes. But the dynamics had not always favored her. Perhaps she dug her own grave but that's politics. You may never know that you would exceed the terms and all of the other things on the ground.
Yeah, but Ernest Deborah did not contest the 2011 primaries, which Frida won. And I think Ernest came to Parliament in 2004.
Yeah.
He did only 2 terms.
2 terms, yes.
And was attempting a third one.
He didn't contest.
Yeah.
I mean, of course, the feeling on the ground would have told him. So he didn't contest. He stayed away. And I remember, I think at the time I was in Akwitia, where the late Dr. Kofi Asare was being acclaimed. And then people were like, hey, Frida, finally we're winning, And that was the first time, that name came up. There are some people who actually believed, and Osei-Owusu made the point, that she wasn't going to contest this election.
Yeah.
There were a lot of people. In fact, there were people who had shown up who wanted to contest. Then along the line, the feeling was like, oh, okay, if she's going to contest, you let it go. They stay away. I remember meeting Gideon Boako in Sunyani in 2021. In 2021, and I had gone to Sunyani, I was speaking a version of, Broken Bono. So he was asking, oh, are you from this area? I said, no, I am Wasa, so I can manage a thing or two. But around that time, I saw people around him and I was convinced this guy was going to show up to contest. And like you stated, because the people love those in power, and this is a man that is everywhere. In fact, there are constituencies that you go that people who are popular, people who are well-resourced, and people who are known on radio stations and TV stations, once they support their people, the constituents will say, Odienu Braying. That's what they'd say. You would hear Gideon Boako speaking for the vice president. He would come and defend the NPP when it comes to a lot of issues. But one of the things people also do not realize is that even when it comes to a lot of the youth-related programs that often would deal with the vice president's office, you'd have to go through Gideon Boako. people, and so he had a lot of support. You've talked about the towns and all of that, and I heard that I think 2 weeks ago. One of our very good friends, Raymond, was explaining the dynamics in the community to me. Once they explained it, I realized it was going to be difficult for Frida Prempeh. But also because...
But not 33%.
No.
Yeah.
Because
the difference was
because she had the corn for the chicken.
You've learned from
Atacha. Because she had the corn for the chicken. The feeling was that this was going to be a close contest. I mean, you were expecting a 48-52 kind of race, or at least 55-45. But 33% is an indication that...
But the corn, she was not the only one who had the corn for the chicken.
That's it. You're right. And you're right. She's not the only one who had the corn for the chicken. But you see, Joseph Boanedu, I remember having a conversation with him years ago, and he said something. That was in 2014. He said something. He said, naturally, after the third term, don't try a fourth term. In Ghana's politics, there are a lot of people who are convinced that after the third term, don't show up again. So when you show up the third term, even if you're able to pass your party's primary, in constituencies that are very close, you're likely to lose. And that's where, and that's where people actually bid their time. They wait, they monitor, they realize you're going for a third term, you've gone for a third term, you're trying to do a fourth term. If anybody runs a campaign, they won't want to you will lose. If he has money, if he has the corn, you will lose because I don't want to answer. Who buy with the minister? As bad as it may be, that's unfortunately our politics. And so you can talk about institutional memory all you want. People will just not buy into it. They will tell you,
how much did it factor into this outcome, his association with the vice president?
It did.
Seeing that he's obviously the vice president is now the flag bearer of the party, did it play a role?
I'll tell you something. I'll use a situation.
As against a minister of state.
This guy is with the vice president. This guy is with whom the NPP say is the next president of the country. Now, the guy that is with the next president of the country, you are not going to vote for him. You're going to vote for somebody who says, I'm the current president's friend. The man who's leaving? Oh, come on. Why will you do that?
Raymond?
No, I get that, but I didn't think that should have played up because, you see, again, Frida has not always been Minister of State or she started as a deputy minister and had to work through the processes to get to where she is today. I think that she might have, along the line, read the writing on the wall, but still felt there was enough to go for it. Now that I become substantive minister, and I'll get support and other things to deliver a better understanding to my people. Because then, we still have a couple of months to the next election, though. She still has the opportunity and she can show proof that I can do things now until the next election that Gideon may not be able to deliver at the same rate and with the same competence and with the same level of resource that I am able to do right now. What I think worked out against her heavily is the dynamics on the ground suggesting that, no, you no longer are the favored child of the people. Whenever that issue comes up, you see how she was playing responsive all the time. So Gideon spent quality time relying on message. I am trying to change or take it to the next level. I'm not here because I think she has done a terrible job. But her point was that you cannot trust somebody who has not been there with you throughout. And that you needed to stay with me because I am the one you know who in the last couple of years, and she will spend some time now trying to list the things she has done. Because even though the man was not a minister, apparently he had done things that even ministers will be envious of in the constituency.
You're actually making the point I'm making. The point that he says, I want to take you to the next level.
Yeah.
Why is he going to take you to the next level? And you look at why he can take you to the next level. Because he says, I want to take you to the next level. This is a party that has a flag bearer. And the flag bearer for the party must win the next election. First Deputy Speaker, Osei-Owusu, MP for Bekwai, he said that our party like government people. His party, they like government people. This man shows up and says, I want to take you to the next level. Between Frida Prempeh and Gideon Boaku, who can take Tano North to the next level? It's certainly Gideon Boaku. Because all things being equal, this is the spokesperson of the current flag bearer of the NPP, whom, if he wins, will become the president of the republic.
And by the way, in the constituency, in the lead-up, part of the signals for me was that some of the delegates came together to buy T-shirts for him. Yeah, I mean, they contributed T-shirts and they were distributing it on his behalf. That he didn't. So I mean, of course, I mean, you can. I'm curious to know why. I'm curious to know why Osei-Owusu had a smile to this.
It reminded me of something.
No, exactly. But you have people do that even in your name. But if you have a strong people on the ground managing your campaign, they'll mobilize people, buy it for them, and let them come and present it to you. It may not be you yourself, the strong people who are managing your campaign. They do these things to show that, the people love you so much that they're willing to do things for and on your behalf. But frankly, hardly the case that the voters themselves will spend their money to buy a T-shirt. No, they expect
But they have not been instigated.
They expect you to do it for them. But those aesthetics are also part of the politics.
Of the politics, yes.
Right. Generally, and I can't say the power from here. Anytime things that defines people's loyalty, no gain. You see, they've done so much for the community. As you talk about that, say, listen, the NDC for crowd who used to be. What about me, who have been your polling station chairman for this while, but personally? And then the regional minister comes, he wants A, you do it for him. Another person comes, he wants B, you do it for her. But he compares, the regional minister sees that what he asked for is cheaper. What you've done for B is more expensive. You give her this and you're giving me that. And then particularly the young people, 50 of them want to be assisted to get jobs. You've managed to get jobs for 20. The remaining 30, 10 will be hopeful and stay loyal. 20 will say, all these wireless jobs, you haven't helped me. Moving on to the next level. They're all counter to success stories. Anything you do successfully, there are people who are on the flip side because they probably expected to be the ones to directly benefit. If they are not the ones to directly benefit from that, then there are 5 people of you following this man. 3 of them have gotten jobs. They'll point to the 2 who have not gotten jobs. Look at how long this person has followed this man. He has not been able to help him get a job. They will never refer to the 3, which is a majority of those who needed help. The 3 that they have helped, no. It is the 2 who have not helped have become the source of the campaign against you. It's grown to become a political culture. So the longer you stay, the more you accumulate people you have not been able to support. And then some of them themselves join others to
undermine you.
So
that's a story there in Tunnel North. And guess who else is joining us today? And as you know, this is the Ayawaso Central Constituency.
Yes.
This building we are in sits on a piece of land that is in Ayawaso Central Constituency. And so we had deployed a correspondent to follow what was happening in Ayawaso West Central Constituency, where you have the Greater Accra Regional Minister contesting. And as you saw in the morning, there were complaints, etc. The accreditations that the party's Director of Elections was here, addressed it quite adequately. The outcome is now known. The Greater Accra Regional Minister won. Henry Quartey is in the studio with us. And congratulations, sir.
Thank you very much.
And I saw you when this happened. Many thought this was going to be a close race. It's going to be a battle for you. We talked about it this morning. Indeed, the reactions was that you were facing a tough time. In the end, you won. What's been your reaction to this? Was this something that was beyond doubt for you?
Well, thank you very much. And first of all, I want to thank God for this. And secondly, I want to thank the national party, right from the national executives, the regional executives, and of course, the constituency executives and the polling station executives. When you move away from there, you want to thank the security and intelligence agencies. I say so because the NPP always shows the way. We have gone through parliamentary primaries in the orphan constituencies peacefully. And then today, I'm sure you'll be monitoring the results across the country. And again, we have done so well, especially with where the incumbent members of parliament. The tension was on, the heat was on, but the people have spoken. The people, the voice of the people is the voice of God. I'm coming back again to congratulate the national executive, because sometimes when you impose candidates on people, the candidate wins all right, but then you are highly likely to see an independent candidate emerging. Now, I think that the party allowed contests, competitive contests, healthy contests has happened. We have to move on. And in my case, I want to say this, that I have not won. The party in my constituency has won. Because if we have to prosecute the 2024 agenda, then one cannot be complacent and just say, I've won. I want to give myself another week or maybe two, and then go to the ground and bring everybody on board. Times to jubilate, this is not a time to jubilate. It's an internal election, it's done. So from 300 people who voted for somebody, I have to go and look for those people and say, boy, elections is over. We have an agenda ahead of us, 2024. Let's go get it. That's what we have to do.
And you make a very important point, because the specifics are that Moses Abbo had 326 votes and you had 594 votes. And you saying unity is going to be a key objective for you. But I'm curious, has he called you yet to congratulate you already?
He hasn't.
Okay.
But I think I should give him time. He's a young man. He has to deal with the loss first, and then we can move on.
I asked that because prior to this, he actually filed a petition even with the IGP, complaining that, he had picked up intelligence that you're going to infiltrate the ranks of the police and try and use your influence as a Greater Accra Regional Minister, who, of course, doubles as a chair of the Regional Security Council, to manipulate the process in that particular part of Greater Accra in this constituency. And so it had been pretty acrimonious leading into today. Unity is important, but he's key to that process, right, of uniting the base in this constituency.
You see, one very important thing that you should know, that is why I never reacted, if you watch closely. Of all the allegations that leveled against me, I never reacted, because I knew this day will come, reconciliation. If I'd also gone to say something, then it would be too much of heat out there. But I kept my cool, because I'm the leader. I should lead by example, and I believe that I have done that. There's one thing I want to address with my mentor, my godfather, and the godfather of the constituency, Sheikh Isikwe. I want to put on record that I've gotten to where I've gotten to because of him. He mentored me, he left me with the constituency, he supported me, and this is my fourth term. I hold no grudge at all against him. And I want to assure the public, it's my father. I'm going to go there on Monday to say, hey,
you're going to go there on Monday.
Oh, yes.
And let's put it in, those who are listening to you and wondering about why is he isolating ICQ, because prior to the elections, ICQ had gone public and had criticized you. In fact, criticize is putting it mildly. It was pretty caustic.
No, he says he's destroying the Constitution.
Exactly. Pretty caustic. And that's why you're mentioning his name, correct? Yes. Okay. And you want to make the point that?
The Bible says, honor thy father and thy mother, and thy days may be long. So once is my mentor, he continues to be my mentor. I'm not going to change that. And I will not say anything contrary or evil or bad about him, because he brought me up in politics. And there's one thing we should know. At his age, you should know that he's not the ICQ of 30, 40 years ago. He's 87 years. So sometimes he has to, show his weight a bit. It's fine. He's children, and we understand it. Yeah, so it's all well and good.
So you're going to go to him on Monday?
Oh, yeah.
And what's the purpose of that?
I have to go and tell him that I've won. Daddy, I'm back. I've won. So we have to start the machine and get going.
Obviously.
We have an agenda. It's not about NPP. It's not about me or anybody in the constituency who voted for me or not. The agenda is to win 2024 so the party can move on. is important that all those who have won, or the victors, should not think that they have won elections and that's it. No. We all have a very Herculean task on our shoulders to go back there quickly and try and unite the base. So that, because remember that as incumbent members of parliament, our colleagues on the other side have had their elections done about 6 months ago. They have started visiting churches and all that. We haven't. So they're about 6 months ahead of us in terms of visibility. You know what I mean? So this is not a time to say, I have won, and start running around, hey, hey, no. You have to go back and get the people on board so you can make progress.
I mean, so obviously, water under the bridge, you moved on. ICQ said it, but you're not taking anything to heart.
Them. I know how this game works. You know, you don't hold on to these things. You have to move on. Yeah, you have to move on. Moses is is my boy. And you see, I'm happy because now I know that one day when I'm leaving, I have somebody who is a brave young man. He's good. So it's fine.
That's an endorsement for the next
time. It's not an endorsement.
Someday he's ready to take over.
Well, he has to come and learn.
But this is not your last time?
I wouldn't say no comment.
No comment. Because that's the thing with a man who has decided he's not going to win.
I announced after the general
elections. Not now.
Not
now. Yeah.
I mean, even though on a lighter note, Osei-Owusu I knew was going to do only 2 terms.
I thought, in fact, after my second term, I actually threatened that I'm not contesting again. Then a team of people who propped me up firmly at the independents came back, said, my friend, we have nobody who has prepared himself properly to take over. If you leave now, we'll go back. We don't want that person to come back. I said, okay, let me do a 3rd term. Then a 3rd term, I became a deputy speaker. I realized that if I continue, I can get more. Because if you're a deputy speaker, everything passes through, and then you get opportunity to ask for what your constituency has lacked in the past. So, yes, but at the end of the 3rd term election, I was convinced that if there was anything outstanding, I'd be able to finish by the close of the 4th term. So it is sufficient to announce that I'm retiring. So for me, I had planned and changed plans a couple of times before. Yeah. The dynamics change sometimes, and sometimes, particularly when you're operating from an opposition, whatever your plans are, you'll be lucky to have a 10th of what you plan to do in your constituency happen.
Because you're the Greater Accra Regional Minister, just very briefly, the last elections, the party didn't do quite as well in the region. This is something that obviously will be key for you going into the 2020.
But actually lost
for elections. Yeah, they did. They lost. And as you know, I mean, historically, if you've lost a Greater Accra region, you should lose the national elections. It's been a bellwether region, but that didn't pan out, you know. And many look at currently and say, if that trend continues.
When I started politics, I was a young man in Koforidua. The first election in '92, I was in Koforidua, and they're saying that if you lose Eastern region, you lose the country. It didn't happen. If you win Eastern region, you win the country. NPP won Eastern region, but we lost. Situations have changed.
Yes.
People have moved. The thing that influence people's voting patterns change all the time. So,
what must happen though to rectify what happened in 2020?
Well,
in Greater Accra,
with the results trickling in so far, as is a two-way traffic, or rather intertwined. I say so because the party allowed a healthy contest. And this is the results we've got. It means that the people are interested in bringing some persons or certain persons to represent them in parliament. They've reposed a certain level of confidence in them. So that energy will come into play. But I'm saying that it shouldn't also take the new candidates, okay, to think that I have won. So, member of parliament, no. There has to be that unity, and that has to be done quickly by the National Party, a reconciliatory committee or something, to do so quickly. And I believe that once that is done, those who are coming to Parliament fresh, they are yearning to be called MPs. So they are going to come in with that energy. But again, we must also be conscious of the fact that they don't win and then go and sleep. they have to be very visible in the constituency. Remember that the MP who has lost is not going to spend money anymore. So winning today and running around, in a joyous mood, it's okay. But as quickly as possible, by next week, they have to come back to the drawing table, have a strategy, and begin to prosecute the 2024 agenda. And as my senior said, it doesn't necessarily mean that losing Accra, you lose the elections. But I can assure you that this time around, Greater Accra will surprise you.
Well, it surprised us in the last election.
Surprised you positively.
Yes, but talking about, I'm just curious about Isaac finally, because yes, you said you're going to go to your father, no doubt about it. But this is a man who held your hand and brought you. Within the period, what has happened?
Oh, well, as I said, he's 87-year-old. When I was growing up, I went with my father to visit an auntie of mine. And when we got there, my auntie leveled all manner of allegations against her own children. That she has not eaten for 2 days. And they have not done this. They have even turned the electricity off. And I could see the light on. And I was like, electricity off? And my father said, you don't understand. When you get there, you understand. I see it is 87 years old. So you don't have to pay attention to everything that he says. But rather you have to look back and say, this is the man who has brought me thus far. I continue to serve him and I continue to ensure that whatever his problems are, we'll resolve it. It's not a problem. We'll deal with it.
That's Henry Quartey. He is the Greater Accra Regional Minister. He's the incumbent member of Parliament for Osei-Owusu Central. He's won in a contest that many thought was going to be pretty close, but was very acrimonious leading to it. You've heard his thoughts on the matter. We're going to take a quick break. When we return, for the next 20 minutes, we will have a conversation with Osei-Owusu. So very briefly, because we also need to now look at what this will mean for government business in Parliament. Yeah. Because what tends to happen is that when the incumbents lose, there's lethargy. They are not as committed to the cause in the House. And he's a leader in the House. He's a first vice speaker in the House. So I want to pick his thoughts on that. The big picture, the outcome. What does this mean for the party going into the 2024 elections on December 7? But most importantly, the business that needs still to be done in Parliament, considering the casualties that the party, the incumbents have suffered today in Parliament. Stay with us.
For the past 12 years, honorable Sarah just have forgotten now. I am going to say what don't make Pabena. You want the teacher be a wire there. Then they have a plan. Yeah, to a man who will be a now I'm back on Brooch. What a TikTok no dear son. That's all your Bamus, most of us. I come back here, come back. Mammy, I'm pretty big. I can say about time. I see your tire, mammy. If you're not the kind, if you're watching the kind, and I see good be a nunu, you will say, I'm a minute, the other be our young son. And I say, Papa, away.
We are here.
Until you not see hotel on no, you can meet your child on also you could talk about it. You want to and let's see even one of school in our town. Miss Minnie said, "Yeah, but dear, I to a man now. What you know, let me call or see and your mom that is a million brand new. It's me buy money, we move to watch it, you know, and I will say, before we know them see, I say, Zach, my uncle now, and I will be a friend silly. You see, which is an restaurant, let me say, I did. You know, it's normally say, overdue mommy. What do mommy see? Me, mommy, and on me, I'm going to silly, I didn't say, money, and a Yusuf, and a bounty, and a Luther, and a Omoba Abuguso. And she, Mamma, soon ever saw me, and I mean, a shake the grana, Munina told me so. To Munum 5 now, me see. Tina, where are you? On so new area. Until you not see hotel on no, you can meet your child on now, or so you could talk about it. You want to and let's see even one of school in our town. Miss Minnie said, "Yeah, but dear, I tried to have."
Yeah, it's another day of celebration for the delegates. You know, they always come out of this richer. They come out of it happier. And we've heard today that actually the delegates were setting their prices now and asking, well, I need, in fact, in one place, I had some delegates said they needed 30,000 CDs from one aspirant before the vote, yes?
I was just telling the Honorable Deputy Speaker that we should be able to deal with, or else the path our democracy is going is dangerous. A richer point, it's only rich people or people who can amass wealth or actually get some resource who can contest elections.
So we reach, we are there.
And
that's something he's been campaigning about. When I spoke to him recently, he's passionate about it. And that's something we have to talk about substantively in the last hour before we leave. But I want to say that today we've seen some major casualties we've been talking about already. Tina Mensah is one of them. We'll go there pretty shortly. But also we've seen some contests that we anticipated was going to be close because of the incidents leading up to the poll. One of them is Adansi Asokwa, Katie Hammond's constituency. And because all the fight that happened there, also because of his own desire to try and disqualify the other contenders, particularly Mr. Binfo Dakwa, who had given him a good run for his money the last time, closed the vote difference between himself in the last race to some 58 votes. And today, many thought, because of constituency executives filed a petition, Katie Hammond himself filed a petition, he wanted him out. The chaos that we saw there today is dominated the headlines throughout the day. Katie Hammond was possibly under pressure, and he knew his time was up, and that's why he was fighting. But he won. Convincingly. Let's listen to him.
Okay, what I want you to know, Muhammad Ali of blessed memory, he said that after I think he's beating George Foreman, he said, I am the undefeated, undisputed heavyweight champion of the politics of Adansi. I remain the champion, undefeated, no champion, no libidibi, no basa-basa, no mas-mas, no yapi-yapi. I want to tell people who want to contest Adansi Asokwa, one, thank God, there is still some life in me. My chairman, my secretary, my soldier, my youth organizer, my members, if you want to contest, you must go and blow the necessary tricks. I'm combining the two, English and our native.
And that's Katie Hammond there talking to us earlier after he won, and it was emphatic. 311 as against Samuel Binfo's 125. Mr. Sousa, I don't know if you followed the process leading into this. It was the most exciting constituency to watch because of all the drama and then the outcome.
Exactly. I think people focus too much on Katie's drama without looking at how seriously he does his work. His constituency is about 2 constituencies away from mine, and Katie is my senior in high school, in secondary school. I've known him from that age. He has a way of dramatizing situations, and it's his communication style. So people don't take him seriously. But when it comes to his work, don't joke. If you go to his constituency, every good thing you can point at is his creation. You know, and when he is pushing a minister for something to go to his constituency, you can see the kind of pressure he will give a minister. So a lot of things get done in his constituency, and he's generally generous. The last time I visited in the house, a crowd of children. He was just sharing money, everybody. And the mothers were bringing their children. You know, these are the things that hold people to you. And so he's generally a popular person within his constituency. But what I will complain quietly about, he will dramatize the same thing. So if you don't know him, you're an outsider, you take it too seriously. But the people who live with him know him. That is just a question of his style of communication. But generally, he's a serious MP. No joke about that at all.
Well, he won, and so that contest has now been put to bed.
Yeah, I mean, you know, when we started the conversation, I said that where you have, you know, Samuel Binfo did well in 2020. Lots of things may have happened in 2020, but we've seen it happening in Asante Achim Central, where in 2020 you saw Kofi Ofosun Kansa doing very well, and the expectation is that now that, you know, he's doing a lot of things in the constituency, more than he did in 2020, he would win, but then he lost. And this is the thing with Katie Hammond, but also because, you see, when you have 3 persons contesting an incumbent member of parliament, he must be very unpopular to lose, because the 3 of you would share the anti-MP sentiments, and then he still gets his votes. So a lot of MPs actually like it when a lot of people come to contest him. And it's the same thing that happened in even Asante Achim North, Andy Appiah Kubi. He won, you know, because the others shared the votes. If he had added their votes, they would have beaten him. But of course, when a lot of people come, and Katie Hammond, like, you know, the first deputy speaker has said, if you go to the constituency, he has a lot of control over the constituency, okay? But, you know, because of happenings here and there, the way he tried getting all of them disqualified, the perception then was that he probably is scared of these people, or they could probably unseat him. But sometimes also, MPs don't want to spend in primaries. Because once a lot of people contest them, they have to spend. And then would have to, and Adansi requires, you know, it's an area that for a very long time, the NDC had targeted because the margins are not that huge, and they felt they could have always taken over. And so you don't want to spend in the primaries and then go and spend also in the general elections. And so if you can get people being disqualified and then you can go unopposed and then, you know, save money and go and spend all of it in the main elections, you try to do that. At the end of it all, what we thought was going to be a close contest or maybe the fall of Katie Hammond didn't happen.
Well, and a very last question to Osei-Owusu, because he comes from the Ashanti region, he's a stalwart there, and it's to ask this. He won, but other incumbents lost. Yeah. Eugene Boachiunchu, for example, is a casualty. What's your assessment of the general picture in the Ashanti region this time? Being your stronghold is going to be critical to your victory. Looking at the outcome today, the incumbents who've lost, the new faces going in, and incumbents who've held on to their seats. And those replacing the likes of you, Osei-Owusu, Benito, Usubu, and others. Is this outcome favorable to deliver a victory there above 75%, which is what you need constantly to win the national elections?
Well, both ways. You know, it can be a blessing. It can be also a curse. First, for those who are incumbents who win, often they are already strong on the ground. But generally, anything that does not happen, any expectation of the content that does not happen, is a vote against you. Often, it raises sentiment against you. So sometimes when new people comes in, the expectation is higher. People expect something new, something different. Of course, the campaign also brings up new promises about what can happen, what cannot happen. But generally, the difference between the last election's votes and the next one, you should look at the population dynamics, you should look at movements. All right? In my constituency, for example, there's an increasing number of migrants from the north.
And the Ashanti region, always when that happens, it doesn't in your favor.
So you look at those dynamics.
Is it happening on a regional scale or in just some small constituency? Is it isolated? What's happening in your constituency?
Areas where there's opportunity for farming, large-scale farming. The migrants come and settle there. One comes, introduces another, then they start a small community, and they're just increasing in number. And before you find out, they've built a mosque, and then they start. The numbers increasing. And as the numbers are increasing, you see your votes, your margin in a particular polling station going down. You know, so population movement is one. A lot of people in the Ashanti region also like to move out. Quite fashionable for them to move. Say, now I'm living in Accra. You know, so a lot of that also affects the votes there. But also there are other people coming to live in the region who are not necessarily friendly to our party. But often, when a new MP comes, the motivation to vote is higher.
It galvanizes the base of it.
Galvanizes the base of the party. And what dynamism a new MP brings, or even a sitting MP brings, what new ideas it throws about, gives hope, and it helps to boost your base and support. And then a lot of us have a large number of non-resident citizens living in other parts of the country. So it costs you money to mobilize them during the general elections to come. And if you focus on that, you can get about 10% also increase in your particular constituency. Otherwise, of course, the same NPP vote, but it happens elsewhere. In that respect, it doesn't affect the presidential, because I live in Accra. I decided not to go and vote in Bekwai. Still, the president of my party will get my vote. But then the MP, his numbers may go down. And then if the election is acrimonious, the primaries in particular, if it's acrimonious, it leads to some people just staying apart, being ambivalent. He takes a position, he's no longer interested in doing anything because the candidate he prefers did not win. So we have observed that any time we lose election, it is because there's acrimony at the base, either through presidential primaries or parliamentary primaries, and people just stay.
Having said that, do you worry then about what happened in the lead up to the Bantama primary? It was, in Ashanti, possibly the most, acrimonious. Obviously, because of Kennedy Pond's, verbal utterances whilst he was campaigning, and the allegations,
So
the threats were exposed. But of course, we've seen the outcome. The Ascenso one is significant.
It is
there consent
well,
for
I
you?
say it's just an event that he pays. Unfortunate comments by him, but that did not affect the base of it. Did not lead to strong division within. The competition was not as competitive as we made it appear. Just that the comment he made at that meeting generated some anxiety, but I didn't reflect on the ground
at all. And as you see, the minister, the Works and Housing Minister, won overwhelmingly in that constituency. And we believe the delegates possibly punished, his brother.
They did.
Because of the pronouncement, the threat, and holding the party to ransom. There's definitely always a concern that when you have casualties, Parliament suffers for the incumbent. Because you have a few months to go, you still have to prosecute your business in the House. You have a budget, for example, a mid-year budget that possibly may come, other government business that may come. What's your thinking on how this may affect business going into December 7th?
Well, I don't think it can be any worse than it has been, frankly. This 8th Parliament has been extremely difficult to manage. At any point in time, on our side, we are called majority. At any point in time, there are more members of the minority in the chamber than us. Not least because there are a number of us who are ministers, there are a number of us who are committee chairmen, there are a number of us who are leaders in other respects, and there are a lot of international assignments taking them out of us. So we have agreed to something we call decision day. So that once we announce that this is a decision day, we mobilize members from wherever you are to be in the chamber to vote. What may happen is that for people who are disappointed, hurt, or in some way unhappy, well, you cannot force him to come to vote if you think that it will assuage his anger or something. But beyond that, it can never be any worse than it is. Generally, once we give the date and we sufficiently remind people, they come to help. It is the day-to-day business that we have challenges, when unexpected challenges thrown.
But the decision they had worked. Then this all worked prior to the primary today. So the question is, after the primary, will this still work?
I believe it will work.
Even when people are disaggrieved?
Well, people are generally responsible. Generally, if it's about the parties or government policy position, yes. However, but of course, if we don't have our numbers, we will defer the decision day.
that is the first Deputy Speaker of Parliament. Thank you very much, Osei-Owusu, for joining us with your analysis, helping us make sense of what has happened. And now we understand a bit more of the Ashanti region. But there's something he said about that I think we need to probe a bit more. The migrants coming in and what the impact of that could be on the elections in the Ashanti region.